guys, welcome to today's Big Brother 17 updates and spoilers. Our house guest of the day is Rigo Perez, and he wants to know, how far do I think the twins will make it into the game? That is a great question. Initially I would have said like, oh, maybe they'll make it like midway or something, but now that we've seen these knuckleheads in action, and I mean like everyone from this season, it looks like the twins are gonna make it really, really far. Like, I would not be surprised if they were all the way to the final three. I'm not kidding, because people don't seem threatened by having freaking siblings in the house together. What the hell? I don't understand that. But anyway, if you look at them separately, Liz is definitely the better competitor. She's much fiercer in competitions. I think her social game is stronger, but at the same time she's a bigger target, so she might be the one leaving before Julia, but Julia's definitely going to be used as a pawn more than Liz, so I don't know who would make it further into the game, but I think there's a good chance that at least one of them could be in the final two, so that's pretty crazy. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. So yesterday they had the power veto ceremony. James used it on himself, of course, and then Vanessa nominated Julia in his place. So Meg and Julia are up on the block together. Who's gonna go home? Alright, so Meg and James were chatting in the have-not room, and Meg is not happy with what just went down. She feels that her fate has definitely been sealed, because how is Julia gonna go home with Austin and Liz voting this week? I mean, really. So James tells her, I know it looks bleak, but like, don't give up. We still have a chance. Maybe Steve and Johnny Mac will want to split up the twins, because like, that's what a logical person would want to do. But this is BB17, so no. But anyway, Meg is also angry that she just spent 2 days kissing Vanessa's butt, and it didn't even pay off. She hates that. Also with Vanessa, she feels like Vanessa's going to try to pull James in now that Meg is going, and she's not happy about that. She doesn't like Vanessa, and she doesn't want her Jamesy working with her. So she's just like, bleh. So then Julia goes into the have-not room to talk to Meg, and Julia's like, oh my god, Meg, I'm so not happy to be on the block. So she's hoping that things aren't going to be awkward, and Meg is like, no worries, like I tried so hard to keep you off the block this week, because Meg did not want to be up against her, for obvious reasons. But she's like, I've got nothing against you, like we're all good, no hard feelings, blah 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 blah. They're both going to try to stay in the house. Okay, so Johnny Mac and Vanessa are now starting to strategize for next week. So Johnny Mac is like, this is the time to split up the Oz twins. We gotta do it. So then there's the whole, do we go after one of the twins, or do we take out Austin first? So Johnny Mac is thinking they should take out Liz, because she is the glue that holds Austin and Julia together. And I have to agree with that. I'm not so sure that Austin and Julia would still work together if Liz was out of the picture. So then Johnny Mac is like, yeah, once Liz is gone, that's 6 people left, right? 6 people left. So they would have to each pair up with someone. And I mean, Johnny Mac, Steve, and Vanessa, they would each pick one person to get close to. So Steve would be with Julia, Vanessa with Austin, and then Johnny Mac by default with James. And then if they find themselves up on the block against their person, you just take out the other person who's not in the alliance. So I feel like they did something similar to that last season. But anyway, or they wanted to. So Meg and James also trying to strategize for next week. Meg knows it's not likely that she's going to be sticking around, but she's trying to help James figure out who he should work with. So her first thing, better not be Vanessa. Do not work with her. So Meg was also saying that she's going to be so upset if Vanessa makes it to the final 2, even if she's in second place. She doesn't want to see that. I could see Meg being a bitter juror, just saying. But then she's like, well, maybe try to make it to the end with Austin. And James is like, yeah, I like that, but only if Liz is out of the picture. Because James knows, like, if Austin and Liz are still together, they're going to take each other to the finals, not James. So then they're talking about what James should do if he wins HOH, and they decide that he should nominate Steve and Vanessa. Yeah, but then, like, there's still that whole trio left in the house. Like, what are you people doing? Okay, so James needs to lighten up the mood a little bit. Things are getting a little tense. So he decides to prank everyone. He walks into the backyard with one of those like old Big Brother cards from a past whatever. And he's just like, okay guys, I got this card here from Big Brother, which was hilarious. And everyone was just like, what? But then Big Brother blocked the feeds because they hate fun. So the halves of the house, there are only 4 this week, got a little booze delivery last night, and I mean little. They got a bottle of wine and 2 beers. But I guess when you think about like how much alcohol they get when there's like no have-nots, that's like a lot for 4 people compared to what they usually get. So all the haves were like, or the have-nots were like, this sucks, blah. But then they were all talking about how they want to party after the finale, and like Steve is going to be the designated driver, and Steve doesn't know how much he can party because his parents are going to be at the after party and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it was kind of funny to listen to, but then I was just like, I'm over it. So it's time to get to work. James and Meg are ready to start making some moves. So James is planting some seeds with Austin for next week. He's like, yeah, Meg, I was talking to her and she was saying she wouldn't be surprised if you and me were in the final 2 together. Isn't that hilarious? And Austin was like, yeah, man, that'd be actually really awesome. Like, we'd both probably have a chance of winning. Good stuff. So those seeds have been planted. So then Meg starts her campaigning with Johnny Mac. And she starts out by, you know, venting her frustrations about Vanessa and Vanessa's reasons for putting her on the block this week and how it seems very personal. So then Johnny Mac is like, yeah, I'm still pissed at Vanessa and Steve and everybody for like voting me out last week. So if I win HOH, I'm just going to be like, y'all voted me out. He can do whatever he wants. So he says that he would put up Vanessa and Steve if he won HOH. Now, we know he's probably just saying this to Meg because he's talking to Meg. I don't see Johnny Mac actually doing that. I think he's very loyal to Vanessa and Steve at this point, but he's just trying to, you know, throw off that alliance a little bit. So Meg is like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, I definitely want to campaign to you later on this week, so like, be ready for it. So then Austin and James were chatting some more later on in the night. Austin is really trying to distance himself from the twins. He's starting to do that more and more. So he's reiterating he can no longer protect 3 people in this game. And I mean him, Liz, and Julia. So he's saying to James, like, I need to start making deals to protect myself. Maybe Liz, but like, I can't do 3. So Austin lets James know, like, if I win HOH, we're good. I'm not going to put you up. And then James is like, yeah, well, Vanessa told me that if I win HOH, like, she's got some information she needs to tell me. Of course she does. And of course she's conveniently holding on to this info until James wins HOH. Of course. So I guess that's gonna, you know, possibly raise some red flags with Austin, too. So then Meg starts campaigning to Steve a little bit. She's really like easing into this whole campaigning thing because it is still a little early in the week. Usually you don't see the big stuff happening until like the night before. So Meg is like to Steve, how are people expecting to win this season? But that is a legitimate question. She's hinting that the Oz twins need to be split up. They're a freaking trio. There are 8 people left and there is a trio in the house. Trio. So she doesn't name names, but it's pretty obvious what she's talking about. And Steve is like, oh yeah, I get it. So Meg is like, Steve, if you have any chance of winning this game, you're gonna have to win your way to the end. You gotta just win competition after competition. So like, are you ready for that? And Steve's just like, you know how Steve is with most people when they're like trying to campaign to him. He's just like, okay, thank you. He doesn't really offer up a lot of information. So then Meg was talking to James. She was catching him up on her conversations with Johnny Mac and Steve. And James is like, wow, Johnny Mac said that about putting up Steve and Vanessa. That's awesome. But then he was like, well, Steve, I already heard that he pretty much promised his vote to Julia this week, so we might be screwed there. But then James is telling Meg about his conversation with Austin, and they're like, wow, it sounds like Austin really wants to keep Meg this week, so maybe we could work with that. So then James comes up with Operation Trojan Horse. So the plan here, they think they might be able to convince Austin to vote out Julia, and then they're gonna blame it on Steve. All right, I know it sounds insane, so let's break this down a little bit. So they're reasoning that this could be very beneficial for Austin for a few reasons. So Steve would become the new target because everyone would be like really pissed at him for flipping. So that's already like a, yeah, Steve's the target. Awesome. And then also it would be beneficial for Austin because it would shrink the target on him and Liz. There would no longer be that trio in the house, so people wouldn't be as likely to come after them. So that's like cool for him. But then with this plan, like they would also have to get Johnny Mac's vote. They would have to make sure that Johnny Mac doesn't tell people that it was Austin. So like there are a lot of little factors here, you know, that make it less enticing. So we'll come back to that. They're planning on presenting this plan tonight, so we'll see what happens with that. But this afternoon, Vanessa got the HOH camera. Wake your A's up. I literally mean after noon. Everyone was pretty much asleep until after 12. It was crazy. So they took a couple pictures, whatever. So then Johnny Mac had some alone time with Vanessa because they were the only two awake at one point, and he lets her know, like, I talked to Meg last night. She's starting to campaign a little bit. You know, we gotta expect that her and James are gonna be putting together some crazy stuff to throw at us this week. So he lets her know that he told Meg that he would put up Vanessa and Steve, and he's just like, I told her that, like, I don't want her to use it against me, which is why I'm telling you right now, but obviously I wouldn't do that. So Vanessa's like, yeah, sounds good, okay. So Johnny Mac promises he's gonna keep filling in Vanessa on whatever Meg is throwing out there, so she's just like, yeah. You know what, she's also looking forward to Steve giving them some information because she knows that Steve also talked to Meg last night. All right, so Julia was freaking out to Liz today because she saw that Johnny Mac and Steve were talking to the goblins last night. She's not happy about it. She's like, what if they flip the vote? She was told that if she went up as a pawn this week, she would have nothing to worry about. And she took that to mean like she could just hang out all week and like relax and go in the pool. But no, like you're still up on the block. You need to make sure that people are doing what they're saying that they're gonna do. So Liz reassures her like, oh my God, Julia, you're so safe, stop. So Steve comes over and he's just like, yeah, you have my vote, like I promised, just relax. So then Steve and Vanessa were chatting up in the HOH room. They're talking about how Julia was freaking out, and Vanessa's like, all right, well, cough it up. Like, tell me what you were talking about with Meg last night. So Steve tells her it wasn't really game related. Meg hasn't even really started campaigning yet, which is true. I mean, like, she didn't really campaign to Steve yet, but she was planting some seeds. So Vanessa is then like, okay, hear me out. What if Austin and Johnny Mac vote Julia out and then they pin Austin's vote on you? She just freaking called out Operation Trojan Horse before it was even presented to Austin. Oh my God, that's great. That's great. I gotta give credit to Vanessa there. That's great. But Steve was just like, what? Like, I don't think that Austin would do that. That's like a really dirty move. There's no way he would do it. I don't know. I'm really interested to see how Austin's gonna react when this plan is pitched to him tonight. But Steve is also like, that would require Johnny Mac to flip as well, and he just doesn't see that happening, so I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm at least interested to see what Austin is going to say when they tell him about their plan. So make sure you guys tune in tomorrow for that. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Austin would consider it? Let me know. And until tomorrow, much love.
Edit.